Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
In usual tradition, this set of episodes, as we come to a close of the year 2023, we're looking back at the year, at the things that defined the year from different persons, looking at different sectors, different trends and insights. And this episode is dedicated to Fintech. Yes, trends in Fintech that shaped 2023. I have on this episode of the podcast with me the Chief Strategy, Partnership and Investment Officer at NowNow Nigeria. It's a Fintech, Matt Francis. Hi, Matt. How you doing today?
Hello, Anthony. Real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Now, give us some insight on what NowNow Fintech is about, what it does, and just so those who are meeting NowNow for the first time have an idea of what NowNow is into and your role at NowNow.
Certainly, yeah. NowNow was founded in 2018 in Lagos on the premise of providing financial services to the underbanked consumer. So it's the agent banking part of the business. So that's how the company started. And we got really good traction in terms of engaging with people, not only in the major cities, Lagos and Abuja, but really outside in the rural communities. So for people that didn't have a smartphone, they can engage with one of our NowNow agents through a feature phone. And by giving a telephone number, the agent was able to open up an account, and then that person was able to pay a bill, recharge their phone, make a payment transfer to a bank. So that offline, cash-dependent way of doing things has now been online. So that's how the business started in 2018 as an agent banking business model. From there, we've branched out because we wanted, the real mission for the company was to capture financial inclusion in its entirety. So not just for consumers and families, but also businesses. Because in Nigeria, specifically, there's over 45 million SMEs, micro SMEs. And most of those business owners are financially excluded as well. So we wanted to build a platform that catered to those needs, to the SME needs. So over the last year and a half, we built this platform that oversees not only the consumer, but the SME. The SME, the tools that we're giving business owners are ERP tools to better manage their business, cataloging, inventory management as examples. We're also giving the merchant a digital payment experience. So they can merchants can use QR code to settle a transaction, physical virtual card. If they have an Android smartphone, they can accept payments through the soft POS technology that we've built in-house. So really giving that merchant a digital payment experience, not just relying on transactions in cash. And then lastly, and maybe this is an area that we can discuss a little bit deeper in detail, we're giving merchants an online store called the NowNow Marketplace for these merchants to post their goods online and sell it to other merchants, so B2B, as well as some of the B2C, the consumers that are on our platform. So really giving these business owners that aspire to take their business online that opportunity through our platform. So that's now at a very high level what we're doing. In terms of my role at the company, I oversee fundraising, making sure that we've got the capital needed to grow the business, to support the business going forward. I also oversee global partnerships for the company. So like MasterCard is one of our global partnerships in Nigeria as well as here in the UAE. And then lastly, I oversee the company's corporate governance, the strategy for the business. So the corporate board, the advisory board. So I've been with NowNow 2 years now, and it's been a terrific journey, and we're doing great work and driving impact in Nigeria.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction. Consumer banking, agency banking, something with merchants too, merchant payments and whatnot. That's for now. And were you always having something to do with maybe the fintech space on the continent, or is this the first time you're getting into the space? And what did you think before now? What did you think about, what impressions did you have of the fintech space on the continent?
It's a great question. So my background, I'm based in our office. We have a small office here in Dubai, overseeing some of our partnerships here that we have in the region. But my background has been in investment banking in the US, Bank of America Securities, UBS, Morgan Stanley. And then the second half of my background, my professional career has been in technology. So I worked at Oracle for a number of years before moving to the Middle East. This opportunity with NowNow, this came across my desk through a friend. I wasn't really looking for an opportunity. This is a few years back. And at that time, I didn't really know much about the fintech space in Africa. I didn't know much about Nigeria, the culture, the people. So when this came across, I thought it would be just an amazing opportunity to get introduced to these areas that I just wasn't aware of, and to learn and grow from that experience. And also the challenge too. So raising money, which I've been doing for most of my career, it's a very difficult business. But I thought specifically for an African fintech, it would be extra challenging. But I really looked at that challenge as an opportunity. So that's kind of what brought me to NowNow. And I will say it's been an incredible 2 years. It's completely surpassed my expectations. Definitely a lot of challenges, but the opportunity is there. And it's not just excitement within NowNow, but also that I've seen in the fintech space as a whole, really trying to drive change, make impact, help people, getting people to embrace technology to kind of circumvent some of the areas that are lagging, such as the banking infrastructure in Nigeria, or the people who are not included in the financial ecosystem, and finding ways to make it more holistic and to help other people. So it's been a great experience. Some of the challenges that I've seen in Nigeria and Africa is, I would just say firsthand, it's having a platform that works, having something that is reliable and dependable and trustworthy, and really giving our customers that feeling of trust. They're dealing with money, so personal finances, you want a platform that works. And so I think that is something that's very, very important. Africa as a whole, I think, in Nigeria specifically, the average age is under 25 years old. So you have a relatively young population that is using, out of 220 million people in Nigeria, I think the number of active mobile devices is around 200 million, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe a little bit less. So you have a young population that has access to a phone, more or less. And how do you engage with that population that's already using technology in whatever degree? So that opportunity is there. But again, it's coming back to building a platform that is sound, that works, has a low transaction failure rates, that has a brand that consumers can trust. That is the key. And then the capital, I think, the region has attracted a lot of international capital. There's a few unicorns in Nigeria alone, without naming names. But it's the last year and a half has been exceptionally challenging. The market has changed. I know that there's still a lot of interest, and I think Africa as a whole, specifically fintech, is looked upon from an investor standpoint. Those that are somewhat aware of the opportunity is kind of like the last frontier. You've had Southeast Asia, you've had India, Pakistan, that have really been leading that area over the last 5+ years. But now the focus is on Africa. So the opportunity is there, and I think it's becoming more and more mainstream, which is good, because there'll be more international money flowing in and supporting those businesses that are trying to address the needs there.
So in the last 2 years of working within this space, what have you found out? What things have you noticed, just generally?
I will say, so in the agent banking space, so when we founded our company in 2018, it was a very exciting time to be in agency banking, right? You had some key players, some big players, without naming names, but still it was kind of wide open, a lot of opportunity for fintechs to kind of fill that void. I think the game has changed a little bit. There's a lot more competition, especially in Lagos, where a lot of other fintechs have tried to get into the agent banking space. And so from our perspective, it's still a good business, particularly in the rural areas. The rural areas, in our opinion, is still kind of untapped markets for agent banking specifically. But from a business sustainability in terms of revenue growth and growing the business, we recognize that the future of agent banking and the margins have come down considerably from when we started in 2018. We just don't think it's a viable way to build a business. So that's why we have shifted into the SME space and really kind of sticking to the goals of the founders of providing financial inclusion in its entirety to everyone. So, but that there is a shift happening, I think, in the market, and specifically in the SME space, there are a few fintechs there, but we see a tremendous opportunity helping these business owners get access to financial credit. And in the SME space, I think there's $150 billion US dollars funding gap. In other words, businesses just can't get access to credit through the traditional banking model that's set up there. So there's a huge need there, and that's an area that we're looking to help these merchants.
Okay, so something you mentioned that struck me is the amount of interest that especially the fintech sector is getting from the international space. And for years now, in 2019, the funding and investment that has come into the fintech space, seems like it's just been going up and up and up until a time when it seemed supposedly that there was some kind of downtime. You're into partnerships and raising funding, investment. Would you describe this period since 2022? I think it's been dropping this year. We also had a drop. What are your thoughts, first of all, about funding and investment into the fintech space? I know that NowNow raised in 2022, last year, about 13 million or so. So what are your thoughts about investment and funding coming into the fintech space on a continent? That's one. And do you agree that there's been a downturn, and how long do you think this downturn will last for?
Okay. Yeah. No, I think from funding coming into the space, you're correct. I mean, it has slowed, and maybe even I think it's plateaued now from the fast money days of just a few years back. So in finance, everything is cyclical. So I think the days of easy access to money, zero interest rate policy in the US and Europe as examples, there's no cost for money. Those days are behind us, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. In other words, businesses that have a good model and are addressing a need that is there and has a product market fit and has a vision or has a plan to make revenue, those businesses will survive and attract capital. The businesses that are kind of just trying to grow at any cost, that business model has changed. That's no longer viable in the market that we're in. So the market that we're in currently and going forward, in my opinion, it's coming back to the basics. What do you need the money for? Are you revenue producing? When is your break even? When will you be a profitable business? These are the questions that investors are looking to have answered, and they're looking for a vision, a scope, a team that is hungry and also has put together a platform that is working. Whereas A few years back, it was just selling a vision and raising money on that premise. So that's currently where the market is. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a really good thing. I think you're seeing consolidation already, but attracting capital, although it may be more challenging, in my opinion, it's healthier. I just think it's a healthier environment. It's more competitive. The better companies will get the money, and also I think we're already seeing some M&A companies that are getting acquired or going out of business altogether. So it's kind of like the tree is getting shaken a little bit, and the surviving businesses will thrive. And I see the fintech landscape in Nigeria. In my mind, there'll be 5 to 10 dominant players in the space, and those dominant players will acquire other companies, will attract the capital. But that's how I see things playing out. So really, right now, everyone is trying to be those 5 or 10 fintech players, and there's some really good competition in the market. So that's how I see it. What's my opinion in terms of funding going forward? I think it's going to be like this for the foreseeable future in terms of coming back to basics, having a business plan, having a focus of making money, revenue producing, having a focus of becoming a profitable business. These are the areas that investors are really focused on. But there's a lot of money still out there in the market looking for good opportunities. And as I outlined earlier, the Africa opportunity, although there's an inherent risk, because it's, in my opinion, a quote unquote, one of the last frontier markets, there's enormous opportunities. And, the VC funds, the family offices, these investment entities are aware of that. And so they're just going to put their money with winners, companies that are performing well, that are making money. And if they're not profitable, will be profitable very, very soon.
Now, let's shift focus to fintechs that seem to have failed or closed up. And it seems like this year, it's either they're getting more press, or we just have a lot more fintechs falling off. What do you think it was this year, with many announcements of closing shop and many announcements of, we're just packing up? What would you attribute this to? I don't know. I know you mentioned something around maturation too. Maybe that might just be a reason.
Yeah, that's a great observation. In fact, I was reading an article yesterday about a fintech that was backed by a very prominent investment bank in the United States that had raised $100 million, something like this, that went bankrupt, that filed for bankruptcy, that shut down. So you're absolutely correct. You're not starting. I've been seeing in the headlines a lot of companies that have gone out of business. Some of these companies had great products. They developed great tech, but they didn't have a team to sell it, which is, a common case in the startup landscape. There's more focus on just developing a tech and making it perfect, but no plan really to sell it. But yeah, you're seeing that in the headlines. You're seeing companies get acquired as well. I think that's going to happen going forward, and I don't see any slowness to that. I think we're going to see more and more headlines of companies. And why is that happening? It's because, again, the tree's been shaken. The market has turned, not in a bad way. It's just it's more competitive. And so you're going to see more of these headlines, companies going out of business or getting acquired. So that's how I see things.
So more acquisitions and mergers, and then we move to the next stage. Now, agency banking, right? What things did you notice in agency banking this year?
This year started out in January with big focus on, if you recall, the demonetization from the last government. There was it was more of a shock, I think, with the big, removing some notes out of circulation and forcing people with withdrawal limits. So how did that affect the agent banking space? I mean, you had people that were almost forced to not use cash and go digital. So platforms like NowNow, I think there's an uptick in terms of more customers using our platform. And, there was a bit of, I wouldn't say uncertainty, but there is an unclear path of where things were going from the marketplace. Now, as the year has played out, that shock has been kind of pulled from the system, but that's clearly, I think, the path going forward. Things are becoming more digitized. There's going to be less reliance on the cash-dependent economies that currently exist pan-Africa. But I think that's a good thing. That's coming back to my earlier point about people embracing technology, kind of following the main trend that's happening worldwide of people using their phones to do transactions in business, to use a wallet to hold their money, to get access to financial products, to invest or slowly grow their money. And you have it all at the fingertips of your phone. In the agent banking space, you have agents that are in the marketplace that are providing this access as well for those that don't have a smartphone. And so the agent banking space is definitely needed, and it still exists, and it's growing. Our legacy business is growing, but it's just not, from a business perspective, it's just not the right model going forward, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
Oh, really? Why do you think so?
Well, the margins have been driven down. There's a lot of players in the space. So if you're not one of the top 3 to 5 agent banking fintech players who have scale and who are able to grow in vast quantities when capital was cheap, then it's really difficult for other players to capture or to grow their customer base. So that's why you have to get into other value-added services, whether it's lending, cross-border remittances, or having other areas of focus to help drive the revenue. Again, businesses need to focus on making money. At the end of the day, we're not in a not-for-profit area. So if you want to survive in this market, you need to produce revenue. You need to show where you're going to be breaking even. So it's, the agent banking space is highly, highly competitive. Margins have been shrinking. It's there. It's not going anywhere. But it's really difficult for new players or for recent players in the space to make money.
Now, for open banking, Nigeria released the regulation for open banking. I don't know if you're conversant with, the idea and the ideals around open banking, but what are your thoughts around how, I'm not sure this, aside the regulation being a major thing that happened in the space this year, that's for open banking. What are your thoughts around open banking and maybe what it could do for the space?
I would throw that question back to you. Like, what are your thoughts? What do you think how open banking has helped the economy in Nigeria?
Well, so for me, if we're looking at open banking right now, in terms of implementation, not much really has been done, or not much really has, happened. But if data is, openly accessible to, you can move your data, as a customer across, platforms, then in terms of some security issues, of course, but it's easier for you to move around from one platform to another. It's easier for you to move whatever finances you have, around, and it's easier in terms of loans. It's easier for all of those things because the data is open. This data is open to platform A, open to platform B. Not just access, but what you're able to do across different platforms as a customer just makes it easier for you in terms of passwords and all of those things. You may not really need to, get into all of that, but I'm yet to see the exact way it's going to be implemented in Nigeria and what it would mean. But then security or cybersecurity is one thing that I think that everyone would need to be very cautious of. Yeah, so that's actually my thought.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. I mean, from I'll just use me as an example. I'm kind of an older guy, and when I opened my first bank account, I had to go into a branch. I had to bring my documents with me, and you sat down with the banker. He opened your account. You got your cards within 2 weeks. It was just a kind of, I wouldn't say painstaking, but there was a process to it that accumulated for several weeks to get that account open. Nowadays, you can just open an account within seconds or within minutes. And you don't have to go to a bank branch. You don't have to, wait in a queue to make that happen and then wait for your cards. So like now we can open up a wallet. We can get you all set up within minutes. And then if you want to get a debit card for your account, you can get that within 24 to 48 hours. So, I mean, so that experience from my days has just, from a 2-week process, it's been condensed down to 24 to 48 hours in terms of getting your physical card. Now you have your virtual card. Yeah, you've got your virtual card already attached to your wallet. So really you don't even need a physical card. Some people want to have the plastic in their hands. I get it, but really you can get a bank account set up, quote unquote bank account, within a few minutes. With regards to open banking, you're spot on. Fintechs like ours we've got a tremendous amount of data, and not just from consumers but also businesses, and that data is highly valuable. You can do so much with the data. So you mentioned like lending. I'm using lending as an example. Merchants that are on our platform that are doing transactions, we're able to identify which merchants, what their performance is, how creditworthy they are, and we can quickly identify which merchants are creditworthy and provide a credit facility for them to help grow their business. So that just shows you how important the data is, how important the whole fintech experience is. And so I guess that's my short answer to your question on open banking.
Yeah, thank you. So now data is what everyone banks on because it's literally the new gold, it's the new oil.
Correct.
In terms of data privacy, data protection, how do you think we fared this year? There are a couple of news, not many confirmed though, but many of news of breaches, data breaches, that happened in 2023, and we also had conversations around data protection. Nigeria's NDPR, I think, the general talk around GDPR. What are your thoughts around data protection?
Yeah, and I think the topic of our discussion today, if I correct me if I'm wrong, is what are the technology trends for this year, right? So I'm going to tie this into data protection and its impact. But to come full circle and answer that question, I'll just say that AI, artificial intelligence, excites me the most. And I think it's going to have the most profound impact in the payments space, which is what NowNow does here today and going forward. It has the ability to enhance fraud detection and prevention, streamline transaction processes, and significantly improve the security, efficiency, and user-friendliness of payment systems. AI can offer chatbots and virtual assistants that are transforming the whole customer experience and supporting the payment sector. And it provides real-time assistance and resolving queries that have built up. So artificial intelligence is going to continue to advance, and it's going to have a huge, I'd say, pivotal role in shaping the future of payments, in shaping the future of data security and the customer experience that people have using fintechs. So that is where we are from a technology standpoint today, and it's only going to enhance going forward. So cybersecurity is very, very important. And at NowNow, I knew this right when I first joined 2 years ago, that having that protection in place is pivotal. I mean, if your system gets breached or if there's any cyber attacks on the platform, it could put you out put you out of business instantaneously overnight. And you've seen that almost happen with some of the largest players, without naming names, in Nigeria. So, we have on our board one of the top cybersecurity, I wouldn't say analysts, but thought leaders in the United States. He's based in Washington, D.C. He's actively involved in the government sector as well as in the private sector. He sits on our board, and he helps us as a company in terms of being prepared and doing certain tasks as a company to prevent any dreadful or negative experience from these threats that are worldwide. It's not just an African or Nigerian thing. It's happening worldwide, and you got to be very careful as a company. So it's a very long answer to your question, but we take it very seriously. And artificial intelligence is going to certainly change the landscape in terms of how that threat, how data protection is going to be protected going forward.
And I like that you brought in, AI, because I was going to ask how, AI impacted the space in 2023. But I think you found a way to, integrate that into your response. And that's really good.
I think so. I wanted to tie in data protection into artificial intelligence. But you're right. AI kind of not just it's data protection, but it's the customer experience. It's making businesses more efficient in many, many ways. And again, that comes back to data. Having that data will empower AI to work and to help the business. So, yeah, I mean, it's here today in terms of the major tech themes of this year. In my opinion, like we're seeing a lot of headlines with businesses going out of business or getting acquired. AI has been all over the headlines this year. Chat GPT and all this stuff is becoming more and more mainstream, and AI is now in vogue, and it will be. For companies that are not utilizing AI, machine learning, or even blockchain to that degree, in my opinion, you're not going to be able to succeed going forward. You have to incorporate these new technologies into your business in order to compete. Otherwise, if you're not, there's just no need. You're outdated
already.
That's correct.
Okay, beautiful. So aside, what we've just talked about from how the space is going in terms of funding and investment, to open banking, to AI, data privacy and protection, were there other things that you noticed within the space worth mentioning that we haven't already talked about?
No, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. From a technology perspective, you can go down many, many paths in terms of where, the next opportunity is, or where there's definitely needs in many different areas. That's why Fintech is the most heavily invested sector within the startup world, not just in Africa, but worldwide. Fintech commands the most money from investors because there's so many different areas. It could be insurance planning, it can be investment, it can be lending, cross-border, wallet, payments. There's just a lot of different areas where Fintechs are addressing these needs that consumers have. So, we can have many discussions on those specific paths. But I think in terms of today's discussion, I think we've covered at a very high level the opportunity, kind of why Fintech is important, what NowNow at least is trying to do to make the experience better for our customers. So I just think it's a very exciting time to be in Fintech, and it will be for the next 15, 20 years. If you're a young budding entrepreneur, don't get turned off because you think Fintech will not be popular from investors, in the coming few years. That's not the case. There's just a lot of interest, a lot of opportunity. Not saying that other sectors are not appealing. There are, but Fintech is definitely very commanding.
Thanks for saying that. That's really encouraging to a lot of people who feel that there's really nothing else. I shouldn't be getting into this space. Let me just look out for, other spaces to get into. So just something that also caught my attention: the hashtag or green revolution, if I'll call it that, climate change. Was it really like a thing, between fintech and the climate change wave that's going on? Because funding actually for things that have to do with climate change or the green revolution, can I say it's a thing, or it's becoming a thing, fast becoming a thing on the continent? I don't know if it's something that you have noticed too.
It is, and I definitely have noticed it, and it's something that is really important for us as a company. So, at the end of the day, we're trying to drive impact as a company. Impact meaning we're trying to provide access to financial services through our platform to the financial excluded population, people, families, and businesses. Trying to make the world a better place, right? Climate change is trying to do that as well, but from an environmental standpoint. So even though the specific goals might be different, from a climate change startup to a mission-based fintech, you can kind of bridge the gap. And I think there's, at the end of the day, climate change and fintech are trying to make the world a better place, trying to help people, right, for future generations. So we noticed this, and as a company, we wanted to get involved somehow in this whole climate change revolution that's happening. So I'm happy to share that we signed partnership with a gaming platform called Planet Play. Planet Play their motto is providing a gaming platform for good. They're enabling users to use their platform for games, and at the same time, they're able to provide carbon credits for those users to help fund certain projects. So the deforestation and certain like cookware stoves and stuff that will help the environment as a whole. So it's called Planet Play, planetplay.com. And we've actually just launched our partnership with them in Nigeria. And we're providing our customers free data plans up to 500 MB, where they can get a data plan through one of the telcos, and they can get access to Planet Play. And for our users to do their gaming, there's 3.1 billion gamers in the world, believe it or not. So it's a huge industry, and a lot of attention, a lot of focus is in the gaming business. But at the same time, Planet Play is making an impact through the carbon credits through their platform. So we're very proud of this partnership, and this is our small way of trying to contribute to the climate change that we're seeing today through COP28 and through other measures.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, and thank you for giving some more insights into what we noticed, and sharing on your own end to the things that you've noticed that defined the space, the fintech space on the continent in 2023. I appreciate the time, and I also appreciate rescheduling the things you had, because yes, thank you very much. I have to say that this episode, Matt had to reschedule what he had to be able to have this conversation with me and to be able to provide these insights to us on this episode of the podcast. So thank you very much, Matt Francis, the Chief Strategy, Partnership and Investment Officer at NowNow Nigeria, for today and for this episode.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I loved your questions, very thoughtful questions, and hopefully I provided some insight for you and your users.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.